thank you, Dr. Tanya Gold, for all your beautiful wisdom. I really, really appreciate everything that you're able to share today, and also everything that you have been able to do for me in the moments that we've had connection. And so one of my questions for you is, you're one of the most joyful people I have ever met in my life, and you really embody that. And I look at that and I'm inspired, and I very much admire it, because sometimes in today's world it's a little tough to stay joyful when there's so many reasons to feel other ways. And so I would love to know from your perspective, how is it that you create so much time and intention around play? It feels like you're very connected to your inner child. You still embody those childlike qualities no matter what age you are. And sometimes people, the older they get, they start losing that connection to their childlike energy and excitement for life. And so how do you embody that? How do you do it, and how do you recommend people to start doing it or continue doing it when, no matter what age you are, no matter how hard life gets, how do you continue being in that joyful state?
Yeah. Well, first, it's a choice. I think you have to recognize that even during tough times, you still have a choice what to focus on and what to think about. And my husband actually shedded light on this. First, I want to add that doesn't mean I'm always all joyful. I do get sad at times. I do cry at times. I do get angry, upset. I'm a New Yorker, so I do have emotions like, ah. But what I try to do is put things in perspective. And when we were dealing with the hurricane, just recently we were dealing with Milton and Helene, and it really, I was getting panicky. And my husband's like, what's going on? I said, I'm focusing on the storm. I mean, are we going to make it? The house was shaking. And at that moment, he said, well, if you're focusing on the storm, is that serving you? And I was like, no. So what can you focus on? We're still going to, take proper precautions and everything, but are we in immediate danger? We were not, thankfully. But we had provisions. We had, plan B, God forbid if something happens. But I was okay if I stayed in that focus on what I can control state versus I'm out of control. So I think when you really lose sight, that's why taking time for yourself is so critical. So thankfully he helped me get back on track. Just with a switch, I changed my focus. And I think I mentioned earlier, I had that list, 100 things that I'm grateful for. So just turning to one or two of them. It can be the birth of your child. It can be the love of your life. You can be your grandkids, whatever, your puppies, your kittens, your kiddos, whatever it is for you that brings you true joy. It may be a beautiful hobby you love, but just having that scene, that memory, that time, and it might be even music, just hearing that song in your head, even if you can't physically play it at the time because we didn't have power, but you're hearing it. So do whatever you can do to anchor, if that makes sense. And sometimes it's a power move, just Amy Cuddy talks about this, you can put yourself in yay, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. Or a silly word yes, what is mine? I call my husband Fuctus, and he's like, it doesn't make sense to anybody else, but it's our kind of secret. But just having, or Stud Muffin, I call him Stud Muffin too. But just having something fun to anchor to. And yes, I do have a ball pit here. I might show you that later. And, some toys, because, I think it's important to play. I love to baton twirl. So I have a little a baton that I play with, and I like to juggle. So, just doing things that bring you joy. And thinking when you're a kid, what did you like? You don't have to get rid of all those toys. If you wanted to be Spider-Man, have the Spider-Man outfit, So, and you don't have to wait for Halloween to do this. Now, maybe you won't go to work like that, but, you can wear it at home sometimes, or just, do something that is putting you in that moment of joy. So I think the practice of it and knowing that kid inside is always there and tapping into it is key.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
And one of the other things I also admire about you is that you're not the typical doctor experience that people have. You're a person who comes with a very holistic perspective. You see the benefits of the Western medicine, and then you also integrate natural medicine.
Yeah.
And so in a world where some people are scared of doctors, why is it important to you to create that type of holistic experience for the patient so that they can have options and not just diagnosis? And I'll also share from a personal note, as a Black woman, as a Black doctor, me hearing you, that is very healing, because I actually got my diagnosis from a Black woman doctor, and it was one of those experiences where I chose that doctor to be able to find out what was happening, and in that process, it was a little bit more of that straightforward, here's the diagnosis, you only have 4 options, surgery, pregnancy, or hysterectomy. And so interacting with you, which I'll get to in my next question, you come from a whole different perspective where you make someone feel welcomed, and like the experience is very different. So why is that important for you to treat your patients with such a holistic experience?
Well, first, I'm sorry you had to go through. Sometimes it's hard. You have to also, I never saying that I always, in my opinion, we always try to say doctors are doing their best. I can't speak for them. But I feel like we do try in a traditional medicine setting. That's what we're taught, is like drugs or surgery or, just traditional things that we've heard of. But the holistic side, that's why I embrace it so much. I want people to know there are other options available. There's always something, and you can be creative. Oftentimes people don't think, even with medicines, sometimes topical medicines, like if you really did need ibuprofen, to take it topically versus, putting it internally so it's not going to your gut, because it does inhibit those prostaglandins, which are actually beneficial. They actually support the mucosal lining, or the lining of the gut. So if that's going away, you can create ulcers or, start to have problems, stomach upset. But just knowing there are things you can do for your health and create that relationship, it just makes somebody more comfortable. Otherwise, they're not going to come back, right? If they have an interaction with somebody who seems cold and just not caring, it's like, well, this is my health. And it's a scary time. You're vulnerable during that time when you're coming there and you're like, oh, just had another friend who was talking about possible skin cancer, and then she'd get diagnosed with it, and they told her her only option is, and it was this, heavy dose surgery that literally, she's a photographer, it can ruin, maim her face. But there's actual other treatments, but she didn't know. So now we're going to be doing some natural as well as some things that would preserve her face. And the same for you, there's natural options to at least include. Again, if the doctor doesn't know about them, they're going from their perspective. That's why I always say, if whatever is happening, try to see if you can speak to an integrative doctor. I'm an integrative doctor as well as a functional medicine physician. It just is treating that root cause. It's looking at the whole big picture, and we also do functional tests to check your gut microbiome. Because that microbiome, that's the good and bad bacteria that exists in the gut. We have trillions of different organisms. Most of them should be friendly bacteria. I call it Smurfland. But a lot of times, no, there's gargamels in there and just angry people. So if you have it's like a whole village. And if they're not acting well, it can actually make us sick, and it can affect our brain. They call the gut the second brain. It really does. It can actually make our mood go awry, and just, we feel depressed, anxious. It can lead to many inflammatory conditions. They say the gut can be the root of so many illnesses, and I definitely agree. So if you have an unhealthy gut, which can come from, remember, antibiotics kill good and bad bacteria. If you need the antibiotics, of course you take them, but just you need probably to have some probiotics. It doesn't replenish it all, of course. It's just a small little adding in of that bacteria, but at least it's something. But sometimes when I was on my antibiotic regimen, I wasn't told to take any probiotics, and my gut just got destroyed, honestly, and I was so sick after, from that. But thank God I read and, learned what to do and took some stuff and got my gut microbiome checked. But if you don't get it checked out, you won't know what's going on. So I always say test, not guess. And you can check your nutrient levels, so you're not just going to the vitamin store and it's like, oh, all right, I'll take some vitamin C. Oh, I'll take but actually check what your body needs, and then you can be objectively taking care of yourself, and not be so subjective. But it's the communication that makes a difference.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. And as a follow-up to that. Yeah. So right before this, just to kind of, recount, but also now that I'm in a much better space, I can talk about it. Yeah. I just want to say I really appreciate you, because when we came here, I was feeling some cramps. For me, my medical diagnosis history is that I was diagnosed with endometriosis. I've learned not to have, like, attach it to my identity and realize that it's in general just a part of my body that's just asking me to heal it. And so when I came here with my cramps, I really appreciate you because you welcomed us into your home for the production. And once you saw that I was feeling the cramps, you're like, oh, let's take care of this. Like, I know what we can do. Here's what I can give you, like, a massage. And so I just appreciate you because you went above and beyond to make sure I felt comfortable and safe, and you held space for me. And to have that from, like, a woman to a woman, that means a lot because, like, okay, I was held and I was able to just kind of go through the process. So on a personal note, I just want to really say I appreciate you for doing that for me. And with that, I would love to hear from your perspective as a doctor, as a Black woman, like, why is it so important to go through the process of, like, healing? And as you're going through that healing, how do you, like, as you were talking to me, you didn't just stay at, oh, it's just physical. You went into the emotional, you went into the mental, and you gave me that encouragement and reassurance and nurturing energy and saying, like, there's layers to this, and it's kind of part of the process. The pain is coming for a reason. Right. So can you share why it's important to look at that healing process as, like, multiple levels or layers, but also what you can do to empower yourself during those times where it just is tough?
Yeah. First, you're not a diagnosis. I always, say that to my patients too, because they do feel like a label, and then, when they go to see another doctor, they're just like, oh, you're this, you're that, and then they have all those syndromes associated with, it's like, oh, but we got to release, because we're all in training for feeling amazing, and we all have the ability. Our bodies can heal, which is so incredible. But with the layers of healing, just bringing in somebody to feel comfortable, like when I was working on you, I want you to know that you have every right to feel the way you feel. Like, sometimes we're like, oh, I have to be happy all the time. No. Or I can't cry. Of course you can cry. So holding space for a person is so healing in that. And also, like, realize it's a give and take. I received from you as well. So that emotional connection that we work on together can be, it's God's grace, I feel. And we're working together is at a human, it's not a transaction in medicine, it's an interaction. Sometimes people consider the medicine side as a transaction. I don't. I think of it's an interaction of communication and compassion. So those layers, when we know we're so much more than just a physical body. And that's why when you just give somebody drugs, but they're like, is this going to work for me? And they're like, oh, the doctor said it's going to work, it's going to work. Let's also enhancing sometimes the placebo effect, right? Because sometimes patients are given, if they're in a study, the kind of dummy pills, and they don't have any, but then the patient, their cholesterol lowered, or this happened, or they felt better after that, surgery that didn't really happen. But the idea is your mind is powerful. And if you recognize how powerful a lot of studies show that we only tap into a very small percentage of our brain. But if you really tap in and hone in on your true identity, your authenticity of how incredible you really are and how amazing you can be and how strong and healthy and vital, your body can power up. And they've done, Mel Robbins has done these studies, and it's really powerful. They took these men that were in their 70s, and they basically said, when did you feel like at the height of your life? Oh, when I was in my 20s, man, I was rocking and rolling. So they did. They had them listening to the music, or whatever age they said, but they were listening to the music. They had them wearing the clothing they wore from that time period. And they literally said their blood pressure started coming down. They started, I'm sure they were releasing endorphins or lowering cortisol. If you think like an old person, you're going to feel like an old person. And that could be a 20-year-old feeling like they're 80, right? That's how I was when I was really sick. I felt so old and heavy. They even said my neck looked like an 80-year-old neck, whatever an 80-year-old neck. I have 80-year-olds that have like a 20-year-old neck. But the idea is your body can age faster. If you look at some presidents, you'll be like, oh my God, 4 years, and look at their before and after. You can age yourself, or you can slow down the aging process. You've probably met people like, oh my God, they're 80 and they look like they're 50. So it really does matter on your energy scale, how you choose to live by how you focus, and then that interaction. Like, loving yourself does matter. And remember, you're not a number. You really can have good vitality. So our connection on the floor today, and I really appreciate you letting me do this for you because I felt honored to serve, is I'm reading and feeling your body, but you're also letting me in. So when we're cramping, your uterus was so tight, we were working on relaxing. So it was like a natural ibuprofen that I was doing with the massage, which is so cool. Yeah. And then the muscles relax, your mental ability, because that's what the reassurance that you're okay, you're going to be okay, and to express yourself fully, take up space and have your emotions, but release them, let them go. That allows that body to heal.
Yeah. And I will say, you doing that, I try not to say pain. I learned that from Imani.
Yeah.
I try to say signals. So signals, I was 6, 7. And by the end of it, I was 2, 3. So it really made a huge difference. So I just want to say that hands-on human approach to healing really makes a difference. So thank you.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. I feel so blessed to be able to do that.
Thanks.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, of course. Those are all my questions. I don't know if you had anything else? Anything?
I just feel so blessed to be here. I'm with my husband's birthday. We're going to celebrate now, and his book being out, and just the emotional, if I could say the title of the book, Never Have Another Bad Day is what I remember. Emotional dexterity, but it's just a wonderful... Beyond emotional intelligence. I can get this right. Never have another bad day. But for me, it's just about giving back. And as much as we can help each other grow and learn and make this world a better, healthier place, and making health the new norm. So not sick as the norm, but health as the new norm is my goal. And making people happier. When you're happier, you're healthier. You can find some of my stock videos on blackstockfootage.io.
I think that's
Thank
it.
you.
All right, that's a wrap.
Mwah.